Hey there guys, welcome to my 999 retrospective. If you haven't been to one of these before, this is basically after I beat a game, I go through and kind of critically analyze how the game does, what I think about it, what I think it did well, what I think it did poorly, and all the lessons we can learn from the game of the future. So, what all do I find that the game did poorly? I always like to start with poorly, because poorly always lets us end on a high note. And 999 is definitely a game that deserves to end on a high note. It is a very, very daring game. It's a game that does a lot of unconventional things, and I want to reward it for that. I did really, really enjoy playing it. Most of the time, I'm still someone that probably should not be playing visual novels, because my god, do I get frustrated with them from time to time. But that's all fair, that's all true, and that's all good. It's still a game that, for the vast majority of the time, I deeply, deeply appreciated it happening. So, that being said, what are the things that I didn't like very much about it? What are the things that I thought it could have done better? That's difficult. My biggest complaint was the fact that we ended up having a situation where we more or less were forced into replaying the game multiple times in order to unlock everything. And I do think to a certain degree this is required. I do think to a certain degree this is, being able to see the multiple endings and being able to become a receiver for yourself and send information across the different timelines really helped the ending. It was kind of a very cool concept I hadn't seen previously. I really, really appreciated it. However, the biggest problem, and they made this a lot better on the PC version, but nonetheless, the biggest problem was that you had to replay through and re-clear rooms over and over and over again. And it was just awful on the DS, from what I understand, where there was no flowchart, and you just had to kind of like bumble through and go through all the different scenarios, and you keep getting the same endings over and over again, because like you didn't realize that it was the choice of the last room that really determined which ending you would get, and it was just bad. I do hope they find a better way to accomplish that in future titles. Though, like I said, I think for the narrative bonuses of having it that way certainly outweighed the negatives. The other options were just wonderful, which is fantastic. The fact that it actually worked into the main story was, I am super happy and impressed in what they ended up doing with it, but nonetheless, it is something that I hope I don't see repeated. It's one of those things that I can appreciate it walking in, but I don't want to continue being in a position where I have to appreciate it, if that makes sense. So, the other things that I didn't necessarily appreciate, there's just a lot of like hanging questions that went on. And some of these may be answered in the sequels, but you do have to kind of judge the game by itself. And by itself, there's just a lot of things that were introduced and never really resolved. And this, you can't really look at it like you would a movie trilogy where there's supposed to be hanging threads. You should end the game feeling relatively good. And when I end the game and I'm like, well, what the fuck was going on with this? Then that's no bueno. It's no bueno. So, specifically, what am I talking about? I'm specifically talking about two big things, really three. But two of them are much bigger. Number one, what the Sam hell was going on with Alice? Like, you go through the whole game, you hear about Alice, this non-melting woman that's supposed to be in the bowels of the ship. You finally, eventually make your way down to the bowels of the ship, and she's not there. And then Ace says she never existed because he found her coffin, there wasn't in there. And then you find her hitchhiking. For no reason. Unlike, there were Jeeps with the keys to the ignition parked down at the bottom, which, okay. If Alice really is an ancient Egyptian priestess, it's very likely she didn't know what the hell that even was. So, you know what? Fair enough. She may not have taken the Jeep, but still, why is she going to, A, hang out in Building Q in Colorado when she was supposed to be on the Gigantic that sank 9 years ago, and B, just sort of randomly wander off after waiting around for 9 years right before anyone actually gets out of the place. It doesn't make any sense. And C, why is she basically naked? Like, okay, I get it. Colorado is hot. I understand, or Nevada is hot, but jeepus. That the whole Alice thing, like everything else, kind of played back into it. It was super fascinating. The whole Alice question was just weird, and I didn't like it. So I won't say I didn't like it. That's not really true. That's not really fair. I didn't understand it. So I didn't understand it at all. I still am not 100% sure what that was even supposed to be doing. Number 2, just the overall ending with the fact that you had Junpei and Akane, and they got to really know each other, and there was a lot of, deep pain and loss, and they really depended on one another. And then at the end, it's just like, oh, yay, we saved Akane. She already left. We're going to catch her. And I'm like, come on, man. We went through the whole game in order to successfully save Akane. And then we don't even get a, resolution scene between them. This game ends with him trying to catch the woman he just saved. It just feels like such a letdown. And I'm sure, I know this is the first game in the series, I'm sure that obviously the Junpei-Akane relationship will be touched on in future games. But I don't care. It's still stupid and I hate it. Okay, I don't hate it. That's not true. But it's frustrating. So, at the end of the day, what we kind of have to say is that, oh, sorry, I should be at the end of the day. The third thing that, and this one frustrates me a little bit less than the other ones, but what the hell was Lotus doing on that ship? And why was she dressed like a belly dancer? Like, we did have a scene where Seven gave her a hard time for the way she was dressed, but no one ever asked, like, hey, why are you dressed like a harem girl? Like, what happened? Did they steal you from a sultan's palace? Like, it's never, I mean, obviously she's taking belly dancing classes, I guess, but everyone else got abducted when they got back to their apartment. And I wouldn't think that Lotus would just be driving around the city dressed like that. Like, wouldn't you change? I don't know. It was just weird. But the other thing, and the really weird thing, is that everyone else has a very, very solid connection on why they're there. Ace was one of the targets of the second Nonary game. Snake was one of the, original participants, was in the, got gigantic 9 years ago, and is kind of the fodder in order to force Ace to kill Nishisaki, or whatever that guy's name is. The guy that starts with an N. Clover, I don't really know why Clover was there, but I do suppose if you're trying to get through the Nonary games, and your two objectives are to entrap Ace and to save Akane, it does help to have someone who was around 9 years ago and is able to solve some of the puzzles. So, fair enough. So Clover makes less sense, but still makes sense. Obviously, Santa and June are the ones, orchestrating the event, so that makes sense. Although I do have to, again, wonder, the whole question of, well, June was not really part of the equation. Like, June died and then came back and was a ghost and able to orchestrate all this, and I still do not fully understand what the deal with that was and how that even worked. But somehow or other it did, so good job there, I guess. That's still an ongoing question. And then you've got, the ninth man, of course, was going to be blown up. Seven was the cop that was on the gigantic 9 years ago. But Lotus, her only real connection is that her daughters were involved. Why would you not get one of the daughters or any of the other kids? Why is Lotus there? Like, I guess that she does know a little bit about the field theory and is able to kind of help Junpei figure out what's going on, but there's no real way that June could have figured out specifically how that was going to happen that I can think of. So I just do not fully understand what Lotus was even doing there. It makes no sense. So Those are my big issues with the game. Things that I don't feel were very well handled. Things that didn't get a suitable answer by the end of the game. So, that said, what are the game's triumphs? First of all, biggest one, massive shout out has to go to the characterization. Junpei is a much more interesting protagonist than any of the Danganronpa protagonists ever were. And if you haven't played the Danganronpa games, I apologize. I think it kind of goes without saying that, of course, I'm going to be comparing this game to Danganronpa. It's by the same developers, and, you know, this is in the mystery queue. I'm going to be very much focused on mystery games. So, of course, they're going to be compared back and forth. Junpei was a full character. He was super interesting. I really liked him, man. He was cool. So, there was that. The other big thing that I thought was super awesome was that I really felt as though, like, Junpei's characterization was very good. I also, the flashbacks and seeing Akane when she was a kid and really understanding that connection was really well handled, and I really liked and appreciated it. That was very cool. That was one of my favorite moments in the game, bar none. Secondly, in addition to the characterization, and all the other characters were good too, I kind of ended the game liking just about every character except for the Ninth Man, because we never really got to know the Ninth Man. Even Ace, you know, although he's a scumbag and he's basically sacrificing kids in order for his own benefit, I still like him as a character. He still felt very nuanced. He wasn't just, I'm doing this because I'm going to twist my mustache as I torture kids. Like, no, he had a decent reason. I thought all the characterization was super strong. I thought all the characterization was very impressive. Second thing, of course, is the actual puzzles were slightly on the easy side, but still very rewarding. I didn't feel unchallenged as I went through for the most part. There were a couple puzzles, but they always had a way to kind of challenge me a little bit. And the overall plot was handled just about magnificently. I'm not going to be able to say that it was handled perfectly, because I don't think it was. But I do feel like some of the deeper mysteries, I don't necessarily feel like I had a adequate opportunity to truly figure it out for myself. But other than that, the plot was handled damn near perfectly. I was very happy and content with what we ended up with. And I've got no negative, reaction to say about that. It's just the plot fit together very well. Everything seemed to fit together, except again the aforementioned Alice. And it was a lot deeper than I thought it would be. I kind of started the game thinking it was going to be a Saw like, oh, I've set up this game, haha, and it would just be kind of like a romp to go through. But no, it was really well put together, and I loved it. Very satisfied. I'm sorry to just keep saying that I was very satisfied, but I was really satisfied. What do you want from me? And lastly, I'm really interested in where this story is going. I'm very fascinated. Actually, this is either awesome or a massive problem. I'm not sure which, because what we end up with is there was a lot of science that was built into the game, which was cool, but I don't know if the science was actually legitimate or not, which is a problem. Not a huge fan. Like, the science all seemed very realistic and had awesome visuals, and I would love to death if it was all accurate, or at the very least based on real things. But I'm not positive it was, but I dearly hope that it's accurate. That would be amazing. I really like for everything that we saw to be, legitimate. That would make me super plus happy. So, that said, very successful game. Very happy to have played it for you all. I have nothing, there are a couple places where the game falls down. I do think, as I said, biggest thing is if you're going to force your people to play through a game multiple times, you need to make sure they have the ability to skip straight to the content they wanted. They were really close. I was super happy with kind of where they ended up. So very, very, very happy and content with what we ended up getting. But at the end of the day, of course, we have to say, if you're going to force a player to clear certain sections of your game, you cannot also force them to have to redo steps they've already done, because nobody likes doing that. Not a single person. So, that said, thank you very much for being here, everyone. I will see you in the next Let's Play. We won't be getting back to the Nonary games for a little bit. The next 2 Let's Plays will be different ones, because just like anything else, we need a break from the same type of game. We can't just continuously play the same thing over and over and over again. This game's been great, guys. Thank you for recommending it.